I've been doing a series on my TikTok about all the ways that psilocybin mushrooms have changed my life. And this one is just too big. It's too juicy. So I feel like I need to do a whole YouTube video on this rather than just like a 2-minute TikTok. So if you want to see the rest of those videos, my TikTok will be linked below. But before I start, I just want to preface that if you are interested in trying psilocybin mushrooms yourself in a therapeutic way, just like I'm talking about, I just want to suggest that you find a safe place to get the medicine from. And also, I wouldn't suggest that you just go out and buy mushrooms and try them yourself at home. I would suggest that you find someone that you trust, whether that is a trip sitter or a space holder or some type of guide or a shaman. I really think it's important to take these medicines seriously. And the safer you feel in the environment that you're in, the deeper you can go into the medicine. And if you're interested in working with me personally, I'll have my website linked below. But anyways, around 6 months ago, I felt called to start working on my womb. If you're into human design, I learned that I'm a sacral authority, which is the womb, the sacral. And I didn't really know what that meant. So that really just put me on a trajectory of learning about the womb, learning about being a sacral authority. And I have endometriosis. So I felt like this made so much sense that my womb is literally sick. Because for me, my womb is where I make my decisions from. And I spent 27 years of my life literally abandoning myself, self-abandoning, being in the wrong religion, being in the wrong marriage, saying yes to people that I should have been saying no to, saying yes to doing things for people that I should have been saying no to, and just abandoning myself. And it's within that time that I developed endometriosis. So I just felt like I needed to take accountability for my endometriosis. And not in the way of, I'm so terrible and I did this to myself and I need to beat myself up about it, but more in the way of, I can see that for years I chose to give my power away to other people because I saw myself as a victim. And through that, my body developed this illness that now I need to take responsibility for and do what I can to give my body and my womb what she needs in order to be at her best going forward. So this is like our starting point. I then felt called to dedicate an entire mushroom journey to just getting in touch with my womb. I didn't really know what that meant. I had no idea what would come out of this. I just felt like it was time to get in touch with her. Because for so many years of my life, I rejected her. And I want to know her. I want to feel connected to my womb. I want to be able to listen when she's telling me to make a specific decision or to say no to something, or I feel like my womb is where my intuition comes from. And I think that's the case for a lot of women, whether you're a sacral authority or not. As women, our womb carries a lot of power and a lot of wisdom. And I don't think it's a coincidence that so many of us are struggling with our wombs, with our reproductive organs. So in this first mushroom trip, I take the medicine, I'm laying down, and the first thing that I see is my womb has a hard shell around it. But what I saw was that this shell was made of grief. And a lot of it was grief that I hold for the women in my family, whether that's my ancestors or my mother or my sisters or my cousins. Just the women in my family have been through a lot, and I hold a lot of grief for them. And that's what this shell was made of. And so I had to kind of sit and feel that for a moment before the shell kind of broke away. And once I entered my womb space, it was the most beautiful, loving, comforting energy I think I've ever experienced. Somehow I was expecting that once I opened my womb that all these scary ghosts would come out and all this crazy shit would come out. But I feel like the medicine was really gentle with me and just showed me the beautiful energy of our womb spaces, which is just love. The visual that I saw during this time was like a house in the countryside and it's sunset, and the energy of the home was just the most comfortable, deepest love. And I realized in that moment that the energy coming from my womb was the energy of a grandmother. And I had this visual of myself standing next to this grandmother energy in the kitchen, me being a little girl, and having my head rested on the womb of this grandmother and her pulling me into her womb space with so much love. And another visual of me being in my early 20s when I'm trying to go out and accomplish things in the world and making a lot of mistakes and coming back to this home of this grandmother and just being held in my fears. And the beautiful thing of the energy of the grandmother is that she's not the mother. She's not giving you advice. She's not correcting you. She's just there to love you and to see you and to give you a safe place in the world where you can come and rest. And then she sends you back out in the world and you do what you think is best. So I was just sitting in this energy for a while. And the physical sensation I was feeling was that my literal womb space had this ball of warmth that as time went on was like growing and enveloping my whole body. And it was like the most beautiful, comfortable heat. So I'm feeling this like grandmotherly love and I'm feeling this physical warmth. And I just got to sit there for a while and just be enveloped in this deep love. And then I was reminded that this energy that I'm feeling is mine. And this love that I'm feeling is me. This is my feminine energy. And I was so emotional in that moment, realizing that this is what my love feels like. And knowing that this energy wasn't trapped within me anymore, that I can release it and I can love people with this love that I'm feeling right now, and I can choose when and where to give this out and when to keep it for myself. So this was my first experience with connecting with my womb. It honestly shocked me. I was expecting this experience to be really tough and difficult, but I'm just grateful that the medicine was so gentle with me and showed me the beautiful side of it first, so that I can, from that point on, start tackling the things that are stuck inside of my womb. And when it comes to working with mushrooms in this way, there are some things that you can work through in one trip, one journey, and there are other things that's going to take a few trips in order to sift through each part of this bigger problem that we're dealing with. And I knew that this issue of endometriosis is going to be a long journey. It's not just going to be one trip and then like, oh my God, I'm healed, amazing. So this is something I'm still working on, but I'm just telling you this first part of my journey. So the second experience I want to tell you about, I don't know if it exactly fits as cleanly into the clearing out my womb space journey, but I feel like this one fits because I feel like it has a lot to do with like the feminine energy that I'm cultivating within myself and like allowing to be released, I guess you could say, and not held in or ignored within myself. So the second journey I want to tell you about has to do with my mother wound. For some context, I had a really hard time with my mother growing up. As a child, she was very dissociated. I was the youngest of 6 children, so of course she was. How could she not have been? And then in my teenage years, I just really struggled with her level of anger and her level of disapproval of me. And I ended up moving out pretty suddenly when I was 17 years old. Ended up moving abroad when I was 18, and we haven't really had much contact since then. And I'm 32 now. So I feel like for me, the mother wound runs really deep, and it's something that felt like an open wound for a long time and something that I've really been trying to work on. So I don't know if this fits into the womb part, but I feel like it does. Maybe it does. So the second experience starts off, I could see my family tree and I could see that I was this little branch over here. And then the medicine let me know that it's time for me to stop being a branch, and pulled me down and said, you are the trunk now. Which sounds really simple, but this action of being pulled from the branch to the trunk was actually quite a painful process of expansion and pulling and really pulling down all of the ways that I have my guard up around my family. It's just one by one pulling down that I have my guard up in this way and you have your guard up in this way, and it's time to pull it down. And really the message was that it's time for me to be the one in my family to open my arms and offer love. And if I receive rejection in return, that I'll be okay. I talk a lot about surrender when it comes to being in a mushroom journey, and this was a moment where I struggled to surrender. I kind of like fought it. I kind of was like, are you sure? Are you sure that it has to be me? Like, I don't think I'm the right person for this. And the message was just over and over, it has to be you. It has to be you. So that was quite a difficult and painful journey for me. And then the next morning, I woke up to a text message from my mother letting me know that she's having health problems. And I'm really glad that I had that journey when I did, because I felt in that moment like I had dropped from my head into my body, and I was able to act on the impulses of my womb, if that makes sense. My mother let me know that she was sick, and I immediately said, can I come visit you? And she said yes. And I said, okay, I'm booking a ticket for next week. And I flew from Zurich to Salt Lake, and I spent 3 days with her, and I invited her to do a journey with me, and she said yes. And it was so healing for both of us, because I didn't go there as her daughter looking for forgiveness or approval or for her to apologize. I just went there and I just opened my arms and offered to hold space for her and offered to create this journey for her. And we were able to meet just soul to soul rather than daughter to mother or mother to daughter. We just met as souls. And I feel like that was exactly what we needed. And from that moment on, our relationship has been completely different. Okay, so as I have been going through this journey with my womb, I've also been going through a journey of trying to figure out if I want to have children. So in this next journey, I was holding space for someone else. So I wasn't having my own full journey, but it was just like 2 minutes where the person I was holding space for was really deep in their journey and silent and laying down. So I had a little moment to have a really tiny journey for myself. And I was just shown what it would feel like in my heart and in my body to go through the process of finding out I'm pregnant and telling friends and family and feeling my baby in my belly and preparing for their arrival and giving birth and like holding my baby on my hip. It's not that the medicine told me, yes, you should be a mother. The medicine just showed me what it could look like, and the decision was still mine. But that experience showed me that this can be something that feels good. Of course, there's difficult moments, but I just saw myself continuing to build the life that I dream of with my little baby on my hip, which was something really beautiful and a moment that I'm really grateful for and that I really look forward to. So once I made that decision, yes, I want to be a mother, then my next journey was another expansion of shifting my mindset. How do I explain this? Of shifting my mindset from this body is mine, basically being alone in my body, to having to share my body, if that makes sense. And during those moments of expansion during this specific journey, when you're experiencing expansion with the medicine, it's kind of like energy pumping through certain parts of your body. And there was a lot of energy pumping through my reproductive organs, I guess. And I could feel the energy pumping through the left side. And then on the right side, it just felt like dark and like no energy was pumping through there. And I know from my doctors that on my right side, I have issues with my fallopian tube is full of liquid. And so they're discussing right now if they think we should remove it or if we should try and get pregnant while it's still there. But it was like my body was in mourning that this part of my body isn't functioning properly. And the crazy thing is that as I was coming down from this journey and like having just experienced this expansion and this mourning of this body part of mine that's not functioning, one of my friends from Utah who does energy healing sent me a message and said, hey, can I do like a distance energy healing on you? And I was like, right now? She was like, yeah, right now. And so right then and there, as I'm coming down from the medicine, she like sent me, like we both closed our eyes and like had a moment from the other side of the planet where she was like sending me healing energy to my womb, and I could feel it. I could feel a lot of energy and like tugging sensations, which I thought was crazy and really beautiful. And like, what timing? That's crazy. And ever since she gave me that, I can feel energy in both sides of my reproductive organs. Okay, the next journey that I had dedicated to my womb is where I almost feel like the true womb work started, of like purging what's inside of my womb. And this one really surprised me because I worked as a nanny for 8 years, and it was kind of like, logically, I knew those are not my children. Working as a nanny is very cyclical because kids get older and go to school, and then you start with a new family. So I was constantly in this cycle of baby, toddler, kindergarten, new family, baby, toddler, kindergarten, new family. And I cared for quite a few children. And logically, I knew they're not mine. But it was like my body felt like those were my children. I loved them so deeply, and someone else took them away from me. So I had to grieve every single one of those babies. And that really honestly took me by surprise. I don't think I would have been able to find that specific grief, those specific ties inside of my womb, without going on a journey with mushrooms, without this medicine. So I was really grateful that I was able to purge that and feel that and let that go. I don't need to be carrying that with me. And it almost felt like I was making space for my own children. I was letting go of the love I had for all these other children so that I can keep the love for my own children, if that makes sense. Another thing that came up in this same journey was that I had to grieve my ex-mother-in-law, because I had in my head been planning for so many years to become a mother within that family. And it meant so much to me that she would be the grandmother of my children. And she is an incredible grandmother to her grandchildren. And I just looked forward to that for so many years that I really had to grieve the fact that I'm not in that marriage anymore, and she will not be the grandmother to my children. That was another thing that really took me by surprise. Of course, I had to grieve the relationships around the marriage when the marriage ended, but I didn't realize I had that tie to my womb, to creating children, and I'm grateful that I was able to let that grief out. Okay, this last one I'm going to share with you, I still don't know if this one like fits in the box of healing my womb, but I feel like healing the feminine energy is kind of similar. And so healing the feminine line in my family feels similar. You can tell me if this has nothing to do with it. But the last journey I had just this past weekend, I started experiencing childhood in this Eastern European country, and I was a baby, and then I was a toddler, and I had a little sister. And then when I was around 12 years old, my mother died. And as I was going through this childhood in this country with this family, we had a really small, humble home, but we had a really large, loving community. And it wasn't until in this journey where my mother died that I realized this is the life of my grandmother. So I was experiencing the life of my grandmother, who was is this word appropriate? She was a gypsy. And we don't know exactly where she was from, but she ended up, when the war happened, her family was separated, her mother was killed, and her sister ended up in foster care. So I got to experience that childhood. I got to experience that shocking moment where everything changed. And I got to experience the bleak sadness and grief and depression of her teenage years. And then she fell in love with a man who had dreams of moving to America, and he gave her this new hope that she felt excited for the future and felt like she could have a life that felt good to her and felt exciting to her. So she moved abroad with him. They had children together. They got married. But what stuck around for her was that intense inner pain. She never healed the pain and the grief that was inside of her. And so it came with her when she moved. And I got to experience the way she felt in this new country with these small children in this marriage, and just deeply feeling unseen and just begging her husband to see her, and not only to see her, but to love her in the way she needs and to hold space for her so that she could heal. And I could feel the way it felt in her body to literally be screaming to be seen, and the way it burned in her chest. And she used cigarettes to numb herself all those years. And she eventually died of lung cancer. So I really could feel that burning in her chest was something she was desperately trying to numb with cigarettes, which eventually the cigarettes and the grief created lung cancer within her. And I saw that exact scenario be passed down to my mother, who married a man when she was 19 years old. He was a part of this Mormon religion. He said he wanted 6 kids. She said, okay, I'll join your religion. I'll give you 6 kids. And I think for both of them, they had this deep craving for community, this deep craving to be seen, this deep craving to be heard. And what they signed up for didn't give them that feeling that they were searching for. It actually ended up taking from them. My mother had 6 children, and that took from her. And both of these women were giving from a place of depletion because they weren't healed, because they didn't get the love that they craved. And then I saw the way that this exact same craving for a community and to be loved and to be seen was passed on to me. And I searched for that within my ex and his family. And I had that same hope that this is going to give me what I need in order to feel good inside of my body. And I saw how my grandmother stayed in that situation until she died. And I saw how my mother stayed. I think I was like 10 when she left the marriage, but she still had 6 children. And then I saw myself leaving before I had children. So I saw how each step of the way the women in my family learned quicker, but how I could stop this right here. And the medicine showed me to never beg for a man to see my pain, to never put a man's wants and needs before my own, to put myself, my needs, my wants, my desires first, so that I can be full and give the overflow to the people around me. So this is my journey so far of trying to heal my womb. Do I know if this is going to work? No. Am I going to try very hard? Absolutely yes. For me, the sign if it works is whether or not I'll be able to get pregnant. So we will see. I'm feeling very hopeful. I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to keep releasing and clearing out everything that is trapped in my womb and letting out more of that love that I got to experience in that first journey. And I just want you to know that it can sound really scary to go into these psychedelic journeys and kind of let the medicine bring up whatever it wants to bring up. But I just want you to know that as scary as it is equally as joyful. Because when something is brought up to you and you get to see it and recognize it fully for what it is and feel the grief and the sadness and the anger that is stuck inside of it, the release after that is the deepest joy. It is absolute euphoria, and it is worth it every single time. Okay, that's all from me. I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye.